The turkey looked overcooked, but nobody was going to mention it. Not at Meira's carefully orchestrated Thanksgiving dinner, where every napkin fold had been Instagram-worthy and every conversation topic pre-approved for maximum charm. I sat at the far end of the mahogany table in our Victorian dining room, watching my fiancée flutter between guests like a hummingbird desperate to pollinate every social interaction. "Drake, honey, could you pass the cranberry sauce?" Aunt Lila's voice dripped with false sweetness. She'd been throwing backhanded compliments my way all evening, the kind that sound nice until you actually think about them. "You know, it's so wonderful that Meira found someone so steady." Steady. Code for boring. I handed over the crystal bowl without comment, my architect's eye automatically noting how the light from our antique chandelier caught the facets. Everything in this house had been chosen for effect, including me, apparently. "Actually, I think Drake's been anything but steady lately," came a voice from the doorway. "Haven't you, buddy?" The room went quiet. Not the comfortable quiet of people enjoying their meal, but the sharp-edged silence that precedes a car crash. Because standing in our dining room entrance, holding a bottle of expensive wine like he owned the place, was Sornell, Meira's ex-boyfriend, the investment banker with the perfect smile and the predatory instincts of a shark who'd smelled fresh chum in the water. "Sornell!" Meira's voice pitched higher than usual. "I didn't think you were coming." Liar. The place sitting next to her had been there all evening, conspicuously empty, like a missing tooth in an otherwise perfect smile. She'd planned this. My fiancée had invited her ex to our Thanksgiving dinner and hadn't bothered to mention it. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," Sornell said, sliding into that empty chair with practiced ease. "Hope you don't mind the intrusion, Drake. Meira mentioned you wouldn't object." I met his gaze across the table. "Did she?" "Oh, come on, you two," Meira laughed, but it sounded forced. "Let's not make this weird. We're all adults here." Sornell poured himself wine from the bottle he'd brought, a vintage that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. "Absolutely. No reason we can't be civilized. After all, Drake, you're marrying the woman I used to wake up next to every morning." Aunt Lila gasped. Cousin Jerry choked on his stuffing. Meira's face went red, but she didn't correct him. Didn't defend me. Just sat there looking mortified that her perfect dinner party was developing cracks. "Sornell," she said weakly. "What? It's the truth?" He took a sip of wine and smiled at me. No shame in being second choice, right? Sometimes the consolation prize works out just fine. I set down my fork carefully. The rational part of my brain, the part that had gotten me through architecture school and 7 years of running my own firm, was calculating angles. Not building angles. Social ones. Escape routes. Consequences. The geometry of humiliation. "Tell me, Drake," Sornell continued, warming to his theme. "Are you planning to keep the house after the wedding? I mean, Meira always loved this place. We spent so many evenings here, didn't we, sweetheart? Though I suppose the bedroom's been redecorated since then." "Stop it." Meira's voice was barely a whisper. "Stop what? I'm just reminiscing. Remember that weekend when your parents went to Cape Cod? We barely left the bedroom. What was it you used to call me? That's enough." I stood up. Every eye in the room turned to me, but I only looked at Meira. She sat frozen, her face a mask of social panic, more worried about her dinner party than about what her ex was doing to her fiancé. "Drake, please," she started. "Thank you for dinner," I said to the room in general. It was illuminating. I walked to the coat closet, pulled on my jacket, and headed for the door. Behind me, I could hear Meira making excuses, Aunt Lila demanding explanations, Sornell laughing softly like he'd just won a particularly satisfying hand of poker. The November air bit at my face as I stepped onto our front porch. The street was quiet, most families still gathered around their own tables, sharing their own versions of gratitude and dysfunction. I pulled out my phone and opened the app I'd been hoping I'd never need to use. 3 months ago, when Meira had first mentioned that Sornell was back in town and doing so well, I'd started preparing. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I didn't trust him. And tonight had proven my instincts right. I opened the wedding planning portal and began typing. First, the venue. The Grand Harbor Hotel had been charging my credit card monthly installments for our reception. I paused the automatic payments and requested a review of all charges. The system flagged the account for verification, effectively freezing any new bookings or changes. Next, the catering company. I revoked Meira's authorization to make changes to our contract and requested written confirmation of all future communications. Then I did the same with the florist, the photographer, the band, and the hotel room block I'd reserved for out-of-town guests. Each cancellation felt like removing a support beam from a building, methodical, structural, irreversible. My phone buzzed with a text from Meira. "Where did you go? Come back, we can talk about this. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the photos she'd posted on social media from tonight's dinner, including several of her laughing at Sornell's jokes, to each vendor's customer service email, along with a note requesting immediate confirmation of all cancellations. By the time I got to my car, the first automated responses were already arriving in my inbox. I spent the weekend at my office downtown, sleeping on the couch in my private workspace and ignoring the increasingly frantic calls from Meira. The building was empty, just me and the blueprints spread across my drafting table, plans for a new office complex that would probably never get built, given the current economic climate. But the work kept my hands busy while my mind processed what had happened. Monday morning brought the first wave of consequences. Drake, Gavin, my assistant, knocked on my office door around 9. He was 26, fresh out of college, and had the kind of earnest enthusiasm that made him perfect for dealing with difficult clients. "There's a woman here to see you, says she's your fiancée. Send her in." Meira entered like a storm system, all nervous energy and barely contained panic. She'd dressed carefully, the blue dress I'd always said was my favorite, her hair styled the way she wore it on our first date. Every detail calculated to remind me of better times. "Drake, thank God. I've been calling you all weekend." "I know." She sat down across from my desk without being invited. "We need to talk about Thursday night. About what happened." What happened was pretty clear. Sornell was out of line. I should have stopped him sooner. She leaned forward, her voice taking on that reasonable tone she used when she was trying to manage a crisis. In her PR job, she specialized in making scandals disappear, spinning disasters into opportunities. But walking out like that, in front of everyone, it made things worse. Worse for who? For us. "Do you know what Aunt Lila is telling everyone? She's saying you're unstable, that you can't handle stress, and now the vendors are calling me with all these questions about authorizations and payment holds." I picked up a pencil and began sketching on the margin of a blueprint. Nothing specific, just lines and angles. "What kind of questions?" "They're saying you canceled things, the hotel, the caterer, the flowers, but that's ridiculous, right? You wouldn't actually cancel our wedding over one bad dinner." I looked up at her, really looked. Her makeup was perfect, but I could see the stress lines around her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly as she spoke. For 3 years, I'd thought I was marrying someone who loved me. Now I realized I'd been marrying someone who loved the idea of me, stable, reliable Drake who would provide the perfect backdrop for her perfect life. "I didn't cancel anything," I said. Relief flooded her face. "I knew it, so you can call them back and—" I put holds on the accounts pending review of recent events. The relief vanished. What does that mean? It means I'm evaluating whether I want to marry someone who invites her ex-boyfriend to humiliate me at family dinner. Drake, be reasonable. It was one night, one mistake. "Was it a mistake when you set a place for him?" She went very still. "What?" "The empty chair next to you. It was set when I got home from work. You planned this." He called and said he was in town, and I thought it would be nice to... To what? Show him how well you'd moved on? Prove that you could have us both in the same room? I set down the pencil. "Or did you want to see if he could make me crack? That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed, though there was no humor in it. "Sornell spent 20 minutes discussing your private life in front of your family, and you're worried about what's fair?" Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face went pale. "The florist wants to schedule a meeting to clarify the current status of our order." "Drake, what did you tell them?" "The truth. That recent events have called the wedding into question." She stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "You can't do this. The wedding is in 6 weeks. Everything's planned, everyone's invited. My parents already bought plane tickets." "Then you should have thought about that before you decided to entertain your ex at my expense." "I'm sorry. Is that what you want to hear?" "I'm sorry Sornell was inappropriate. I'm sorry I didn't shut him down faster. But you can't destroy our entire future because of one dinner." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I opened my laptop and turned the screen toward her. The vendor portal showed a list of holds, cancellations, and pending reviews. Thousands of dollars in deposits, months of planning, all hanging in digital limbo. "This isn't about one dinner," I said. "This is about you watching someone humiliate me and caring more about your party than your fiancé." She stared at the screen like she was looking at a car accident. "How do I fix this?" "You don't. I do, when I'm ready." "Drake, please, I love you." "Do you? Or do you love the wedding, the house, the life we planned? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. After she left, Gavin brought me coffee and a stack of messages. Rough morning? Getting better. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Heard you had a little meltdown at dinner. Maybe Meira deserves someone who can handle the pressure. S. Sornell. Somehow he'd gotten my number and decided to twist the knife. I screenshotted the message and forwarded it to the same vendor list, along with a note. Additional context regarding recent events affecting our wedding plans. Then I blocked his number and got back to work. The blueprints in front of me were for a renovation project, taking an old building and transforming it into something new. Sometimes, I reflected, you had to tear down the existing structure before you could build something better. By Tuesday, Sornell had escalated from text messages to showing up at my office building. Gavin called up from the lobby around lunchtime, his voice nervous. There's a guy down here asking for you. Says his name is Sornell. He's persistent. Send him up. You sure? He seems kind of aggressive. Send him up. 5 minutes later, Sornell strutted into my office like he owned the place. He dressed for intimidation, expensive suit, gold watch, the kind of confident swagger that probably worked wonders in boardrooms full of people who confused money with intelligence. Nice setup, he said, looking around at my drafting tables and computer workstations. Quaint. Very artistic. What do you want? To clear the air. He sat down uninvited and crossed his legs. Meira's upset. Apparently you've been making some rash decisions about the wedding. My decisions aren't your concern. They are when they affect someone I care about. I set down my pen and gave him my full attention. Someone you care about? Meira and I have history. Real history. Not this. He gestured vaguely at my office. Whatever this is you two have been playing at. If you have so much history, why did she leave you? His confident smile flickered for just a moment. People make mistakes. They get scared of real passion, real connection. They settle for safe. Is that what you think I am? Safe? I think you're a placeholder. He leaned forward. I think Meira was hurt when things ended between us, and you were there to help her feel better about herself. But now I'm back, and she's remembering what she actually wants. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a manila folder. Inside were printouts of social media posts, text message screenshots, and a few other documents I'd been collecting since Thursday night. Interesting theory, I said, sliding a photo across the desk. This is from your Instagram account, posted Friday morning. The photo showed Sornell at an upscale bar downtown, arm around a blonde woman who definitely wasn't Meira. The caption read, "Celebrating another successful conquest. This year the winner takes all. Mon, back in town." His face went carefully neutral. I have friends. I'm sure you do. I slid another document across. This is a screenshot of your dating profile. Still active as of this morning. Relationship status. Single and loving it. What's your point? My point is that you're not here because you care about Meira. You're here because you can't stand the idea that she moved on without you. He stood up abruptly. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. You saw her happy with someone else and your ego couldn't handle it, so you decided to blow up her relationship for sport. She invited me to dinner. She invited you because you manipulated her into it, made her feel guilty for not staying friends, probably told her some story about wanting closure. I stood up too, matching his energy. But you didn't want closure. You wanted to prove you could still ruin her life whenever you felt like it. For a moment, the mask slipped completely. I saw the real Sornell underneath. Petty, vindictive, and absolutely furious that someone he considered beneath him was calling him out. You think you're so smart, he said, but you have no idea who you're dealing with. Actually, I do. I opened my laptop and turned it toward him. On the screen was an email composition window addressed to his company's HR department. The subject line read, "Concerning employee conduct, harassment documentation." What is this? Your text messages to me, screenshots of your social media posts, a detailed timeline of your harassment of my fiancée and attempts to sabotage our relationship. I clicked into the attachments folder, which contained everything I'd compiled over the past few days. I also have statements from 3 people who were at dinner Thursday night, describing your inappropriate comments about Meira's personal life. His face went white. You can't send that. I can, and I will, unless you back off completely. No more surprise visits, no more text messages, no more showing up at family events uninvited. This is blackmail. This is documentation. You made this personal when you decided to humiliate me in my own home. Now you get to live with the consequences. He stared at the screen for a long moment, clearly calculating whether I was bluffing. I wasn't, and something in my expression must have told him so. "Fine," he said finally. "But this isn't over." "Yes, it is." After he left, I actually did send the email to his HR department, along with copies to his direct supervisor and the compliance officer listed on their company website, not because I wanted to destroy his career, but because men like Sornell only understood consequences when they affected something they actually cared about. My phone rang an hour later. Meira. "What did you do?" she demanded without preamble. "About what?" "Sornell just called me. He's furious. Says you threatened him." "I documented his harassment and informed his employer. That's not a threat, it's a consequence." "Drake, this has gone too far. You're acting like a crazy person." "I'm acting like someone who's tired of being disrespected by you and your ex-boyfriend." There was a long pause. When she spoke again, her voice was different, smaller. "The wedding coordinator called. She says we need to meet this week to reassess our timeline, or she's going to assume the event is canceled." "Then you should probably schedule that meeting." "Will you come?" "That depends." "On what?" "On whether you're ready to acknowledge that what happened Thursday was completely unacceptable, and that your priority should be fixing our relationship instead of managing your image." Another pause. "I'll call you back." She didn't call back that day, or the next. By Thursday, exactly 1 week after the dinner that started everything, I had my answer. Thursday evening, I was working late at the office when Gavin knocked on my door. "Someone's here to see you," he said. Actually, two someones. Meira walked in first, followed by a woman I didn't recognize. Mid-50s, perfectly styled gray hair, carrying a leather portfolio that screamed expensive consultant. "Drake," Meira said, her voice carefully controlled, "this is Janet Morrison. She's a relationship counselor who specializes in premarital crisis intervention." I looked at Janet, then back at Meira. "Crisis intervention?" "I thought it might help if we had a neutral third party to help us work through this situation," Meira continued. "Janet has experience with couples who've hit rough patches close to their wedding date." Janet stepped forward with a practiced smile. "Drake, I want you to know that what you're experiencing is completely normal. Wedding stress can bring out unexpected reactions in even the most stable individuals." Unexpected reactions. The important thing is that you and Meira both want the same outcome, a successful marriage and a beautiful wedding celebration. I sat back in my chair. "And what makes you think that's what I want?" Janet's smile faltered slightly. "Well, presumably you proposed because you wanted to marry Meira." "I proposed because I wanted to marry the woman I thought Meira was, someone who would prioritize our relationship over her social calendar." "Drake," Meira said, "please, just listen to what Janet has to say." "I've heard enough." I opened my laptop and pulled up the vendor portal. "Janet, since you're here in a professional capacity, I want you to see something." I turned the screen toward them. The wedding status page showed a comprehensive list of cancellations, all processed that afternoon while I'd been waiting for Meira to call me back. "As of 4 p.m. today, our wedding is officially canceled. Venue, catering, flowers, photography, music, hotel blocks, everything." Meira went completely still. "You're bluffing." "Confirmation emails are in my inbox. Cancellation fees have been processed. Deposits are forfeit, but that's a small price to pay for clarity." Janet cleared her throat. "Drake, I understand you're feeling hurt, but don't you think this is a rather extreme response to what was essentially a social misunderstanding?" "A social misunderstanding?" "From what Meira has told me, her ex-boyfriend made some inappropriate comments at a family dinner. That's certainly uncomfortable, but hardly grounds for ending an engagement." I looked at Meira. "Is that how you described it? Inappropriate comments?" She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Let me give you the full picture, Janet. Meira secretly invited her ex-boyfriend to our Thanksgiving dinner. When he spent 20 minutes recounting their past relationship in front of her family, she sat there and allowed it. When I finally left, she was more worried about salvaging her dinner party than about what he'd put me through." Janet's professional composure cracked slightly. "Oh." "Then, when I put holds on our wedding vendors to give us time to work through this, instead of apologizing or trying to understand why I was hurt, she spent the week trying to figure out how to override my decisions and get the wedding back on track." "I was trying to save our relationship." Meira finally spoke up. "No, you were trying to save your event. There's a difference." I stood up and walked to the window overlooking downtown. The streetlights were coming on, casting long shadows between the buildings. "I realized something this week," I said without turning around. "You don't love me, Meira. You love the idea of being married to me. You love the house, the stability, the way I fit into your 5-year plan, but you don't actually respect me as a person. That's not true. Then why didn't you stand up for me? Why didn't you tell Sornell to leave when he started talking about your private matters? Why didn't you call him afterward and make it clear he was no longer welcome in our home? Silence. I'll tell you why. Because part of you enjoyed it. Part of you liked having 2 men compete for your attention, even if one of them was humiliating the other. Drake, please. Her voice was barely a whisper now. Don't do this. I turned around and looked at her. Really looked. The woman I'd fallen in love with 3 years ago, who'd seemed so confident and sophisticated and sure of what she wanted. Now she just looked desperate. It's already done, I said gently. The wedding is canceled. The vendors have been notified. The only question now is whether you want to try to rebuild something real between us, or whether you want to keep pretending this is all about one bad dinner. Janet cleared her throat. Perhaps we could discuss some strategies for moving forward. No, I said. This isn't a communication problem that can be solved with counseling techniques. This is a fundamental incompatibility that I was too invested to see clearly. Meira was crying now, but quietly, like she was afraid of making too much noise. What am I supposed to tell everyone? The invitations went out months ago. People have made plans. And there it was. Even now, even with our relationship dissolving in real time, she was thinking about the optics. Tell them the truth, I said. Tell them we realized we weren't right for each other before it was too late. She looked up at me with something that might have been hope. Before it was too late? The engagement is over, Meira. I'm sorry, but it is. You made your choice last Thursday, and I've made mine. I walked to my desk, opened the bottom drawer, and pulled out a small velvet box. The engagement ring I'd spent 3 months' salary on, chosen because the sapphire matched her eyes. This belongs to you, I said, holding it out. She stared at the box like it might explode. I don't want it. Then sell it. Keep it. Throw it away. That's your decision to make. Janet stood up abruptly. I think perhaps we should all take some time to process this conversation before making any final decisions. The decision is made, I said. The only thing left is accepting it. After they left, I sat alone in my office for a long time, looking out at the city lights and feeling something I hadn't expected. Relief. For the first time in a week, I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was just free. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Heard about the wedding? Sorry it didn't work out. If you ever want to grab a drink and talk, I'm around. Layla. Meira's best friend from college. I hadn't heard from her in months. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, Thanks. Maybe I'll take you up on that. Some endings, I thought, are actually beginnings in disguise. 3 weeks later, I was cleaning out my desk at home when I found the folder of wedding planning documents Meira had left behind. Contracts, vendor agreements, seating charts. The paper trail of a future that would never happen. I was about to throw it all away when my phone rang. Drake? Meira's voice was different, smaller. Could we meet? There's something I need to tell you. We met at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory far from the house we'd shared, and the memories embedded in every room. She looked tired, older somehow, like the past month had aged her in ways that went beyond simple stress. I've been thinking about what you said, she began, about me not respecting you. Okay. I think you were right. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup like she was trying to warm herself. I think I got so caught up in planning the perfect life that I forgot about the person I was supposed to be living it with. I waited. Sornell called me last week. He wanted to take me out, said he was sorry about how everything went down. She looked up at me. I told him no. Good for you. He didn't take it well. Started saying things about how I was making a mistake, how you were boring and would never make me happy. She paused. And I realized that's exactly what I used to think was exciting about him. The drama, the chaos, the way he made everything about him. What changed? I remembered what it felt like to come home to you after a long day, how you'd listen to me complain about work without trying to fix everything or make it about yourself, how you'd surprise me with little things, my favorite coffee, a book you thought I'd like, flowers just because it was Tuesday. She was crying now, but trying to hide it. I threw that away for what? For the thrill of watching 2 men fight over me, for the ego boost of knowing my ex still wanted me. Meira, I'm not asking you to take me back, she said quickly. I know it's too late for that. I just wanted you to know that I understand now, what I lost, what I gave up. We sat in silence for a while, watching people hurry past the window with their own urgent purposes, their own complicated lives. "What are you going to do now?" I asked finally. "I don't know. Move out of the house, I guess. Find an apartment. Figure out who I am when I'm not planning a wedding or trying to impress people." "That sounds like a good start." She reached into her purse and pulled out the velvet ring box I'd given her 3 weeks ago. "I want you to have this back. Keep it, or sell it, whatever feels right." "I can't keep it. It reminds me of who I was when you gave it to me, who I thought I was." She set it on the table between us. "I want to remember who I actually am instead." After she left, I sat there for a long time, looking at the ring box and thinking about the strange mathematics of relationships. How love could be real, but still not be enough. How you could care about someone and still be wrong for them. How the end of something could feel like both a loss and a liberation. My phone buzzed. A text from Layla. "Coffee tomorrow? I have news about the Sornell situation." I'd been having coffee with Layla once a week since the engagement ended. Nothing romantic. She was married with 2 kids. Just the friendship that had been impossible while I was with Meira. It turned out she'd never liked Sornell, had been worried about Meira's decision to invite him to dinner, and had been waiting 3 years for someone to call out his manipulative behavior. "What kind of news?" I texted back. "The kind that will make you glad you dodged that bullet. Meet me at the usual place." I pocketed the ring box and walked out into the December afternoon. The air was sharp and clean, carrying the promise of snow. Somewhere across town, Meira was probably packing boxes, dismantling the life we'd built together. Somewhere else, Sornell was probably planning his next conquest, his next opportunity to prove his superiority over men he considered beneath him. And here I was, walking through my city with empty hands and a clear conscience, ready to find out what came next. For the first time in months, I was genuinely curious about the answer. The coffee shop door chimed as I stepped back inside to wait for tomorrow's conversation. Whatever Layla had discovered about Sornell, whatever final chapter this story still needed to write, I was ready for it. Some stories end with grand gestures and dramatic confrontations. Others end with quiet realizations and the simple decision to walk away. Both kinds of endings can be satisfying, as long as they're honest. This was my honest ending, not with revenge or reconciliation, but with the recognition that some battles are won by refusing to fight them. Some victories look exactly like walking away. The ring box felt light in my pocket as I ordered another coffee and settled in to wait. Outside, the first snowflakes of winter began to fall, covering the city in a clean white blanket that made everything look new,